Hello and welcome to Workers' Comp Unwrapped, the podcast that simplifies workers' compensation for physicians. So let's get started. Welcome back to this deep dive where we try to cut through all the marketing noise to find out what's really working.
Right.
Today we are tackling probably the biggest buzzword in healthcare right now, artificial intelligence. Specifically, we're looking at AI and workers' compensation billing, WC billing. And we are incredibly lucky to have an expert with us today who has, 15 years of hard-won experience in the WC revenue cycle. Welcome. So let's just jump right in. Every single tool on the market promises to be this magic bullet, right? It'll fix denials, it'll speed up billing. What's the fundamental problem? Why do these generic AI tools just hit a brick wall the second they see the complicated world of workers' comp?
Well, it's the difference between trying to sort apples and oranges versus trying to sort, highly specific legal documents.
Okay.
WC billing is absolutely not plug and play. The rules are not universal. And, generic AI models, they thrive on standardization. But WC is, by its nature, all about the exceptions. It requires strict adherence to rules that are specific to the jurisdiction, specific to the payer. Think about unique state forms or specific treatment protocols for a certain state board. Without a ton of manual configuration to teach the AI those legal variances, it can't function properly.
Right, and any mistake there isn't just a billing error, it's a legal liability.
It's a huge liability.
Well, that variation, that state-by-state mess, is why we have to talk about patterns today, not guarantees, because what works for a clinic in Texas could be a total disaster in, say, Pennsylvania. So you mentioned complexity. For someone who maybe knows standard group health billing really well, why does the data look so different in WC? What is tripping up the algorithms?
The inputs are just fundamentally different. It goes way beyond the standard CPT and ICD codes that most systems are built for. In WC, we're processing all these other complex inputs like requests for authorization or RFAs.
Right.
We have utilization review outcomes, UR, which, dictate what care actually gets approved and paid for. And on top of that, you have constantly shifting claim statuses and all this unique documentation tied to the legal process itself.
So what does that mean in practice? It's not just more data, it's
not just bigger, it's messier. And it's legally weighted.
Legally weighted. I like that.
A generic AI might, it might ignore a missing causation statement in the doctor's notes. But in WC, that one little omission can immediately stall the entire claim. It can trigger a dispute. And worse, it can actually hold up necessary patient care. If the AI doesn't see that specific link, that because of work link, the claim is dead in the water.
So the stakes aren't just financial. They're regulatory, and they're about the patient. The margin for error is basically zero.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move past the theory. Let's get practical. Buzzwords aside, where are practices right now seeing genuine, measurable benefits from these AI tools? Where's the actual win?
The genuine wins today are they're firmly in administrative support and quality control.
So not the big, sexy decision-making stuff.
No, not at all. We are not seeing AI make high-level strategic decisions. But what it does excel at is being a tireless, really rapid pre-checker.
Pre-checkers.
So the most reliable use cases are where the AI is augmenting the staff's ability to just handle the sheer volume of claims and find those simple errors. This means, automatically flagging missing documentation. Was the doctor's signature on the PT script? Did we include the first report of injury?
The basics.
The basics. It also identifies billing inconsistencies, like a procedure code that doesn't match the date of service. And this is a big one, prioritizing claims.
Prioritizing, that sounds basic, but I imagine in a high-volume office that's actually huge. How does it prioritize any smarter than a person just sorting by how old the claim is?
It's about combining complexity with urgency. Generic systems, they sort by dollars or by age. A WC-specific AI model is trained on state fee schedules and, more importantly, state-mandated payment windows. It flags the claims that are approaching a critical state deadline. Say you're 15 days out from a state requiring either a denial or a payment.
Which could carry penalties if you miss it.
Big penalties. So the AI directs the human team to the claim that has the highest regulatory risk, not just the oldest or the biggest one. And that's a massive time save.
That's a really crucial distinction. So the AI is acting like a risk manager, an augmenting tool. It's not the replacement authority for an expert biller.
Absolutely not.
But if it's checking, say, 90% of those little repeatable errors, isn't that just semantics? I mean, why can't we just slowly phase out a full-time claims checker?
Because that last 10% involves nuance that the AI just fails to grasp, and that 10% is where all the risk and all the liability lives? I mean, think about it. If an AI misreads a complex operative report and tries to code it automatically, it might pick the wrong complexity level. You could get an underpayment that you can never claw back, or, even worse, an overpayment that triggers a full-blown audit.
Not worth the risk.
So successful practices, they understand that the AI's output has to be treated as a high-quality draft, a suggestion.
Never the final word.
Never the final word. The human expert provides the context, the history with that payer, the legal climate, the subtleties of the doctor's judgment. The algorithm has none of that.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The risk exposure is just way too high. So let's dig into that documentation and coding side, because that's where the vendors really push the AI capabilities. What's actually working there in the WC world without inviting all that risk we just talked about?
Again, the effective function is not automated creation. It's automated review for legal compliance. The tools use natural language processing, NLP, to scan the clinical narrative notes and check them against a list of required state-specific legal phrases.
Legal phrases. Give me an example.
Sure. So a lot of jurisdictions require the provider to explicitly state that the treatment is, and I'm quoting here, medically necessary due to the claim-related injury.
That's a key phrase.
It's a critical phrase. The AI makes sure that phrase, or something very close to it, is actually in the notes. It flags missing elements needed for WC compliance, like the date the patient became stable. It's also great at catching discrepancies.
Like what?
Like if the notes detail a 90-minute procedure, but the biller accidentally entered a code for a 30-minute one.
So it's like a hyper-vigilant legal proofreader. It's reading every single sentence to make sure the claim doesn't get kicked out on a simple technicality.
Exactly. It's speeding up the human by automating that tedious compliance check.
Which lets the biller fix the problem before it gets submitted.
Which is so much cheaper and faster than fighting a denial 3 months from now. Just massively reduces the amount of rework by catching those alignment issues early.
Okay, speaking of fighting, let's talk about the high-stakes stuff. Denials, RFAs, the whole approval process. That's where the real money is lost or won. Is AI actually making an impact there? Is it winning approvals for us?
It improves the success rate, but indirectly. It does it by sharpening the human process.
How so?
Well, we're seeing practical improvements in tracking and in pattern identification. AI systems can track RFA status updates automatically, which is critical because those UR timelines are rigid. If a decision is due on a Tuesday, the AI flags that claim first thing Monday morning for the team.
So the better calendar.
It's a much smarter calendar. And the better systems can also analyze denial patterns, not just by code, but by the reasoning behind the denial. For instance, if the system sees that payer X in California has denied 80% of knee arthroscopy claims from a specific surgeon, it will flag all future claims of that type for a mandatory human pre-review. That lets the staff gather extra documentation or even pre-negotiate with the adjuster.
So the AI is like the intelligence officer. It's giving you situational awareness, but it's not the negotiator in the room.
That's a perfect way to put it.
It's telling you where to deploy your most skilled, most expensive people. But if it's so good at recognizing patterns, why can't it just take that next step and write a persuasive RFA itself?
Because winning an RFA often requires understanding context that an AI it can't access. It requires clinical judgment. Assessing if a new MRI is truly necessary for a complex case. It requires causation analysis.
Explaining why this happened because of work.
Exactly. An AI can't understand a claim history that involves a pre-existing condition, and it certainly can't argue why a sudden worsening of that condition is directly tied to a recent workplace event. That kind of argument requires pulling from all these different sources, a doctor's opinion, an employer's timeline, maybe even case law, and synthesizing them into a persuasive narrative.
And AI is bad at narrative.
It's good at synthesizing data. It's terrible at synthesizing legal judgment and subjective clinical opinions.
Okay, that leads us right to the hard limits. We've established it struggles with the why and the context. Where else does AI fundamentally fall short in the WC ecosystem? Where does it create unacceptable risk?
Well, beyond causation and negotiation, the really hard limits are in clinical interpretation and liability assignment. A very dangerous area is when practices try to use a generic AI to interpret unstructured data. Like a long handwritten consultation note.
Oh, I can see that going wrong.
It goes very wrong. If an AI misinterprets the severity of, say, a post-op complication and pushes the claim toward a classification that minimizes the employer's liability, or the opposite, maximizes it without full clinical backup, the practice is exposed to huge legal risk.
Because the AI doesn't understand the standard of care.
It doesn't. Or the implied meaning behind a physician's carefully chosen words.
That sounds like a major failure point. Can you give us a concrete example? A real-world, high-risk failure that can happen when an office leans too heavily on this stuff.
Absolutely. We've seen systems fail when a physician dictated notes on two different patients back to back. One was WC, one was group health. The AI, just using basic pattern recognition, incorrectly merged diagnostic info or medication lists between the two charts. So if that WC claim goes out attributing treatment for a non-work illness to the WC injury, that's fraud, even if it was accidental.
A mistake a human would probably catch instantly.
An easy human mistake to fix with quick oversight, but an AI will often fail to see that contextual mismatch. This is why over-reliance creates this massive legal exposure. The AI doesn't understand the difference between data and liability.
Okay, so it seems like the people who are succeeding with this have to be incredibly disciplined. So putting all this together, what are the best practices separating the successful adopters from the ones just spending thousands on a fancy spell checker?
The successful practices all have a start small and verify everything philosophy. They deploy AI specifically for the tasks that need zero judgment. Quality control, data organization, prioritization. They focus on minimizing rework and maximizing human efficiency, not on cutting staff. And they rigorously audit the AI's performance. If the AI flags something, they track how often it was right. They treat the AI model like a new employee on probation. You measure its error rate against your human team.
And they never let it make the final call.
Crucially, yes. They strictly avoid using it for final submission, for authorization, or any decision that requires signing off on causation or medical necessity.
The golden rule sounds like, use AI to handle the volume so your staff can focus on the value.
That's it.
Leverage the tech to protect the human expertise you already have.
It is. The best ROI comes from freeing up your most experienced billers so they can spend their time on the phone with adjusters or appealing high-dollar denials. Instead of chasing down missing signatures or checking forms for the 20th time, AI is only beneficial when it supports, not replaces, your trained WC professionals.
This has been incredibly clarifying, really cutting through the hype. If there's one single definitive takeaway you want to leave our listener with, as they consider this pretty significant investment, what is it?
The single most important takeaway is governance.
Governance.
AI can significantly help WC billing, but only if you approach it with the absolute certainty that you are responsible for the AI's output. Your goal should be discipline and efficiency. Fewer errors, less rework, better staff utilization. And you have to set up clear human validation checkpoints. Don't just automate for the sake of automation. Automate to reduce human error in compliance, because that's what reduces your organization's liability.
That's powerful advice. Focus on reducing liability through discipline, not just maximizing speed. Thank you so much for walking us through the real-world applications and, maybe more importantly, the real-world risks. And to you, the listener, if you are exploring AI in WC billing, remember that success hinges not on how sophisticated the algorithm is, but how strictly and thoughtfully you govern its use. You need a tool to audit your process, not a tool that requires constant auditing itself. We hope this deep dive helps you make smarter decisions. Join us next time. Thanks for listening to Workers' Comp Unwrapped. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe and share with fellow doctors. Stay informed and keep making a difference in your patients' care.